The Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show is sponsored by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And with that, let's welcome in our guest of the day. It is ESPN football expert Field Yates, who we are thrilled to have join us on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. How you doing today, Field?
I am doing great. First of all, thanks for having me. Second of all, Jay, we meet again, my friend. So great to see you thriving. And then next, I kind of want to offer some Donovan Mitchell thoughts. Now, I'm sure your audience hears zero about my thoughts on the Cavs.
Let's go, Field. We give a damn. Let's go. Let's go. What you got?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. I think you guys are right on here. Here's what I want to know. This is the question that I have more than any other right now. Is you guys are, I'm sure, aware that as of this year, NBA teams can start negotiating with their own free agents to be or extension talks with their own players that are eligible for an extension the night after the NBA Finals, or I guess at the conclusion of the NBA Finals.
Once
so if
it's
you're
over.
the Cavs, once it's over. But we don't know when, unless the series goes to Game 7, you don't know when that date will definitively be. So how did Kobe Altman and co. figure out what to do as it pertains to making that offer, presenting that extension offer to Donovan Mitchell? Do you just sit around and wait for a couple days after the NBA Finals concludes? Or do you have to have a plane booked for every game, starting at Game 4, if it's 3-0, one way or the other, and be prepared to have those papers in the lap of Donovan Mitchell immediately to make clear how much this team and this franchise wants nothing more than for him to put his name on that dotted line to make that extension official and sort of graduate to the next step of this process. Because as we know, if Donovan, despite all of his public sort of declarations, doesn't want to be with the Cavs long-term, this whole thing gets thrown haywire, although I do believe he wants to be in Cleveland.
See, this is why Field Yates is like the MVP of ESPN. You throw him into an NBA conversation and boom, 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 boom. He's talking business and he knows what's going on. Now, so I have a question for you, Field, because as you know, in the NFL, there are also markers on when negotiations can begin, when free agency begins. And even before free agency begins, the agents and sometimes the players are leaking out information, and we know about these deals. It's almost become like this formality that once the clock says free agency is open, then the teams officially announce all of these moves. Is it happening in the NBA too, where perhaps in a secret bat cave somewhere, the Cavs have already talked to Donovan Mitchell? The money is what the money is. He's a max guy. That's non-negotiable. Do you think that the NBA is playing sort of by the NFL rules and that these backroom deals are already wink and a nod, handshake done, and then once the season is over, they can be announced?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely happening, Jay, at all levels. But I think what you said is particularly important as it pertains to a guy like Donovan Mitchell. Is like there's no negotiating. Like I suppose the Cavs could try to make an offer that excludes a player option in the final year of the deal. Maybe Donovan and his party says we want a no trade clause. Small little bells and whistles like that. But I find the NFL side hilarious because there's no such thing as a max contract, right? Every player has the right to negotiate for as much or as little as the team is willing to offer. So I always laugh when it's the day one of free agency and like 7 minutes into the legal negotiating window, teams and a player have found a way to negotiate the largest contract for an offensive tackle in NFL history. Like that's a lot of ground to cover in 6.5 minutes before that tweak is sent out from our guy Schefter. So the NBA, certainly these deals are largely done at the highest levels, these big max level contract guys. But at least in the NBA, the negotiators on both sides have the fact that there's so little negotiating actually involved. Really, the only part that matters is, does the team want to offer the max deal? And does that player who deserves that max want to stay with that franchise?
Yeah, very well said.
You know, Field, since you want to get into contracts, I'm going to just bring it back to football. You know, Justin Jefferson just got a crazy deal. I love it, not because I'm a Vikings fan or anything. I just like it because Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are really good friends. So now I know Jamar Chase won a contract, and now I know that they already got Hendrickson that won a bag of money, and they got T. Higgins that also wants a bag of money. And technically, I don't know if the Cincinnati Bengals have that bag of money for anybody but Joe Burrow, but it makes things complicated. What are your thoughts on the Bengals cap situation? Do you think Jamar Chase will become the new highest paid receiver after Jefferson signs his deal?
Yeah, they've got some high society problems going on right now in Cincinnati. I don't think the Browns are at all. They know how this works too, right? I mean, when you have a roster as loaded as Cleveland's is and a quarterback who's paid, in the top 8 of the position, it's going to result in having to make some difficult decisions from time to time. And for Cincinnati, do they have the money? Yes, but it's going to potentially come at the cost of some other players. And that's the reality of the NFL with a salary cap that does not include some luxury tax, where if you got an owner who's just richer than everybody else, you can dig deeper into that tax and just pay more money, and it's evenly distributed amongst the non-luxury tax teams. So for Cincinnati, I think ultimately at some point over the next, let's call it 2 months. Let's call it 3 months, because I guess until the NFL regular season begins, I think Jamar Chase gets a deal done. He's a year behind Justin Jefferson in terms of NFL experience, but in the NFL, as Jay was referencing earlier, there are defined dates of when you can begin negotiating. In the NFL, the day after your third regular season concludes, if you are a drafted player, you can start negotiating with your team. So Chase has been eligible for 4.5 months now with Cincinnati. They just haven't gotten a deal done, but in part because the patience was going to work out for guys like Justin Jefferson and now Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb and some of the other top wide receivers at the market. The most complicated one for me remains T. Higgins with Cincinnati because, as you guys know, it has gone nowhere. He requested a trade. There seems to be zero interest from Cincinnati's side of obliging that trade request. But if you're the Bengals, one thing you have to ask yourself is, what can we get for T. Higgins, and does that supersede the possibility, maybe even the likelihood of a year from now, T. Higgins being in a different uniform? They just did this dance with Jesse Bates, the safety who bolted in free agency for Atlanta. I think this is notable, at least. Both Jesse Bates and T. Higgins are represented by David Mulugheta, of course, a very familiar name to Browns fans. He is also Deshaun Watson's agent. And I don't think right now things are like super smooth between those two sides based off of how the things have unfolded this offseason for T. So if I'm Cincy, I get it. Trading away a player who's that good in a position that we know right now the NFL is tremendously valuing, that's not good business in terms of making you a better football team. However, you might have played a bit of the long game here, right? Joe Burrow said the window is as long as he is around. That might require some times where you take a step back to ultimately move forward. I'm not trying to make everything about what the Chiefs have done, but Kansas City acknowledged this when they traded away Tyreek Hill. We're going to have to reconfigure this roster. I think Cincinnati is probably entering that phase of their team building as well. The most obvious difference is that Kansas City has 3 rings with Patrick Mahomes, and basically every other team at the top of the heap in the AFC right now has none.
All right, Field, let me set this up for you. Speaking of Kansas City and the Cleveland Browns, but set the scenario. I want your honest opinion. Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes are both having Pro Bowl seasons this season. Both rosters have all key guys healthy. The Chiefs and the Browns meet up in the AFC Championship game. Do the Cleveland Browns beat the Kansas City Chiefs? Why or why not?
Yeah, man. Okay, so I think that the Browns have I just want to make sure that I say these things carefully, understanding how much passion there is on both sides, right? But the rhetoric for the past few years, I think, has been accurately that Cleveland has, as good of a roster as there is amongst non-quarterbacks in the entire NFL. If Deshaun gets back to where he was prior to the trade, then I think Cleveland absolutely has the goods to beat Kansas City. Here's the reason why you have to go with the Chiefs, and this is more of a respect thing than it is like actually going one by one, 53 players in total, and comparing each roster. Is just that Kansas City, as we saw last year, has that big game metal to it, right? Buffalo had everything they could possibly want against Kansas City last year in the playoffs. They're playing at home. Kansas City was a team that was stuck in the mud on offense all year, and Buffalo couldn't get the job done. It felt like when the moment got bigger, Kansas City played better, and conversely, Buffalo, for whatever it is, the third or fourth straight playoffs, just couldn't quite rise to the occasion. So I think Kansas City, and maybe I've become sort of the easy way out guy, but I almost look at like there's a boxer that you just don't want to count out until he's been sort of like knocked down in that final round. And that's where I'm at with Kansas City right now. 3 championships in 5 seasons, back-to-back Super Bowls, the best player on the planet still there. Until they're knocked out, Kansas City, to me, will be the favorite no matter where they are, what time, what place. As long as number 15's on the field, I think they deserve that kind of recognition.
I think that's well said. Their experience counts for something. And in those big games, you're right, they always rise to the occasion. I have a question for you, and it's based on part of the comment that you just made. When you go 1-53 on these rosters, the Browns have a championship caliber roster. I don't think there's much disputing that. But I think the obvious absence is the quarterback. And when he was brought here to be the missing link. He was going to be the reason the Browns got over the Super Bowl, or got to a Super Bowl and got over that Super Bowl hump. Obviously, we could talk for days about everything that's happened during his time here in Cleveland. The suspension, then the injury last year, coming at a time when he finally put a half of football together that looked like Houston Deshaun. I know that this is ultimate supposition and projecting. Are we ever going to see even close to Houston Deshaun in a Cleveland Browns uniform? And if so, is this the year?
The thing that I feel most confident about saying, Jay, is that we're going to find out one way or the other this year. Let's just say Deshaun has an okay year this year. Better than what it was last year, but not dominant. I don't think that dominant season arrives in 2025 or 2026. I really believe it's this year. This is the put up or shut up year. Now, does shut up mean that the Browns move on from Deshaun Watson after this season? Probably not. It's really hard to do so based off of the construction of his contract. But this is the year where I believe the Browns get the best, clearest, most obvious snapshot of what Deshaun Watson is going to be. And people have asked me about Deshaun basically in perpetuity since he was traded. And here's where I can't quite figure out. I don't know how many references there are that are similar to this, but how many players, and I'm talking nothing about what has taken place outside of the lines of the football field here, but a guy goes from 26 years old at the time of the trade, or 27, and being on the short list, if not the clear-cut number 2 quarterback in the entire NFL. So one of the best at his job in the world, and then all of a sudden falls back to the middle of the pack. That happens, we see it at 35 to 37, that happens. All of a sudden guys just kind of lose it, right? There are players who have seen that cliff hit really, really, really hard. Brett Favre was always the most notable example when he went from on top of the world at 39 and 40, and then all of a sudden it was like, all right, you can no longer win with Brett Favre as a high-level quarterback, but we see it on smaller scales all the time. Deshaun, I just can't quite figure it out because there isn't any precedent. Now, my best guess, and I'm not trying to be a psychologist because I don't think I'm qualified to do that, but I'd have to imagine everything that took place off the field has made the focus on football a lot more difficult for Deshaun. And it's going to be a sort of an exercise in compartmentalizing this year and him finding that form that he had in Houston. And if he gets there, then there's no doubt this team is good enough to win the Super Bowl this season, because we saw just how great they were last year, almost simply just based off of the defense. And then the offense found its stride with Joe Flacco, and you were like, this team is going to be a hard out if they make it to the postseason.
All right, Phil, let's have some fun, man. I'm a four-time fantasy football champion, right? Four-time fantasy champion,
I'll be asking you for advice.
Okay. Last year I had Amari Cooper on my fantasy football team. I do a good job of keeping my Cleveland Browns bias about it things.
No, you don't.
Liar!
Biggest lie we've ever told.
So talk to me. Who got high-end fantasy football value for the Cleveland Browns this year, man?
I think David Njoku is probably the name that I'm most interested by with the Browns this year, just based off of what we saw last season. And I got to tell you, I thought that David Njoku, at the time of signing that extension, I was kind of like, that's fine. I mean, it's about what tight ends at his level make. And then all of a sudden it became like what a value it was. And there were games last year with 15 targets, double-digit catches in games. And Njoku is kind of this interesting player because while his yards per catch average was okay last season, most of the high-end fantasy football tight ends are guys that just catch a million passes, even if they don't score a bunch of touchdowns or have a ton of yards, where Njoku could be the opposite. Like, there is a world in which Njoku, and this is what kind of made George Kittle a pretty rare breed during that year in which he set the single season record for receiving yards by a tight end, just north of 1,300. Njoku is obviously such a gifted athlete that if he only has 70 catches this year, because Deshaun and Amari have great chemistry, and Jerry Jeudy becomes the player the Browns think he can become, and they get more out of Cedric Tillman, you name it, whatever it is. He still might be good enough because he's such an athlete to post 70 catches for, 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns and be a top 5 fantasy tight end. So I think Amari will end up being the highest drafted Brown, but Njoku's the one that I'm most interested in. And then the backfield, good luck. I'm not going to try to offer an opinion yet because a lot of cooks in that kitchen, and Nick Chubb's return is so uncertain. The Browns, I think, have kind of led the march on that one, though. They have been very consistent with the messaging. At some point during the season, they expect him to return. Some point could be the day before the season begins. It could be the day before the season ends. So I'm having a hard time assessing an appropriate value on Nick Chubb, who, like many, has been one of my favorite players to watch during his time in the NFL. You always want to bet on a guy like that. But just given the uncertainty of when he will return, I can't tell you confidently you should be drafting him here or there because there is such a wide range of outcomes.
Yeah, he's a mystery. Mikey McNuggets, our producer, has a question for you.
Yeah, we've seen all the receiver contracts. We talked about T. Higgins, Jamar Chase earlier. Justin Jefferson got the extension this morning, but the first of this run of receiver contracts was actually Jerry Jeudy. And when it happened, It was 3 years, $51 million. It was a $45 million bonus onto his regular contract. And it seemed early, and at the time we were like, it may seem like a bit of an overpay for a guy who hasn't lived up to his first-round status yet. But now seeing how the rest of these receiver contracts have played out, Field, do you feel like the Browns may have gotten a steal by inking Jeudy before he had a chance to show what he could have on the field? Because if he had a productive season, these wide receiver numbers are just going up and up and up and up.
Yeah, it turns out Andrew Berry is excellent at what he does in a lot of ways, including being very good about forecasting the market. I mean, he might get mad at me for saying this. Myles Garrett's the most underpaid player in the NFL right now, right? He's got to be sitting there thinking to himself, hold on, there's wide receivers who I'm better and more impactful than. They're making $10 million more per year than I am now. So, or maybe it's even $7 million, whatever it is. But Andrew has always been excellent at forecasting markets. That Harvard education goes a long way, I'd imagine. So I think that this Jerry Jeudy contract is going to age very well. However, I will say it could become like one of the ultimate steals if he becomes the player I think Cleveland is envisioning him becoming. But he's still got to there are some boxes he must check. Because even though it's 43% or whatever the math is of Justin Jefferson's average annual value, and CeeDee Lamb will be there at some point, and other receivers will be there in that same vicinity soon, Jerry's got to be a more consistent player than what we saw last season. Now, it felt like it was just time for a change of scenery for him, so maybe that goes a long way, and him becoming the player we all thought he was going to be coming out of Alabama, because no player's perfect, but it was pretty darn clean coming out of Bama as a draft prospect for Jerry Jeudy. Kind of checked all the right boxes. If he holds up his end of the bargain, though, in Cleveland, and Deshaun plays like I think we all believe he can play, not a guarantee, but he can play, then this deal will age incredibly, incredibly well. I know the sticker shock when the deal gets first reported. I remember thinking a little bit myself, that's a big number. I had a chance to kind of go back and look at the real numbers behind that deal. It's not quite as large as maybe the initial reporting always makes it seem, which is kind of par for the course in the NFL. I think it's a fine deal, especially with where that wide receiver market is moving.
Well, we talk about money, and I guess we'll throw a bow on it. I'm a guy, I joke and say all the time, man, there is no salary cap. The cap is imaginary. They keep restructuring these deals. They restructure them. They put some dead years on or throw. I think Jimmy Haslam is paying people twice now. He's just void those years of pay. Are there other, because we're not paying attention to other people around the league. Are the Browns just doing this because they have the money and they really want to win now in this window? Or is this something that's rampant across the league in terms of, teams manipulating the cap this way?
There are a handful of teams that are in the same boat as Cleveland. New Orleans, Philadelphia, San Francisco are amongst the most notable ones. And not to get super into the weeds on the salary cap, but essentially what the Browns are doing is they are paying players rather than their base salary in full. They convert it into a signing bonus. The reason why that matters for the players, they get that money right away. Even if it's the same amount of money, it's nice to get, in the case of some of these bigger salaried players, $20 million now as opposed to $20 million in equal installments over the next 6 months. And then from a team standpoint, when you convert any dollar that is treated as a signing bonus, it is a signing bonus, gets spread out evenly over the remaining number of years on the deal. So if it's $10 million converted into a signing bonus and a player's under contract for 5 more years, it hits the cap evenly, $2 million a year for the next 5. Now, the reality is that you're going to have deals that get backloaded towards the end of them. But this is a competitive advantage that the Browns have at the ownership level with Jimmy Haslam, because he's willing to pay those signing bonuses because he has the cash to do so right now. And, the credit card bill will eventually come due, but the reality is what the gains the Browns are realizing right now more than offset the potential of you having to carry significant amount of money, dead money on the book. The Eagles have a couple of players that have either retired or been cut in recent years, and they're carrying some nasty numbers there. You know what, though? They got those guys in such bargains in earlier years that it's okay. So the Browns are in a fairly unique category. I know the NFL is a meritocracy as far as a salary cap. In a lot of ways, it's the same for every team. There are certain thresholds every team has to meet. This is one of the very few ways in which an owner can make a real difference. So while it may sound quirky and unconventional when you hear of these deals being restructured, the reality is it's a big benefit to the Browns to have the Haslam family being willing to pay those signing bonuses and create all that extra wiggle room for Andrew Berry and his team to work with.
Yeah, it helps. Does seem like it's a perfect match right now. We're up against a break. We've got to go. But so quickly, I have to ask you this question. We'd like to play a game here where we go cross-profession and we do equivalencies. And I have decided that if I'm comparing you to all the head coaches, this one's so simple. You're Kevin Stefanski. You're smart. You're youthful. You're handsome. If you grew a beard and you got a little bit of salt in with that pepper, you're literally Kevin Stefanski. So my last question for you is a Kevin Stefanski question. We keep being told, the extension is coming. The extension is coming. The extension is coming. But also as evidence that we're kind of looking at this with an eyebrow raised is that he made a change at offensive coordinator in the offseason that I'm not sure was his. And we're learning more. Jameis Winston saying in OTAs that this is going to be Ken Dorsey's offense and he's going to call the plays. Stefanski has said he loves calling plays. What the hell's going on here? Why is Stefanski not signed long-term? Please put my crazy mind to rest and tell me that this is eventually going to happen. What am I missing?
Yeah. First of all, I'll take that for a coach comparison. Every day of the week. I don't have the pen credentials that Kevin does as far as the education is concerned, but that's okay. We'll make up for it in other ways. I believe this will get done this month. It wouldn't surprise me if this is like a going away present when the team hits its summer break, probably in the next, 7 to 10 days.
Great.
I have to check the actual date of the Browns minicamp. But it's fairly par for the course, Jay, of when these deals get done is coaches, GMs often extended in June. It's just a simple way. It's a lot of these coaches would prefer for this to not be news at all, and they'd rather just do these things in silence. Teams like to announce these things because when you've got a really good head coach like Kevin Stefanski, it builds excitement and buzz for the fan base. So it wouldn't surprise me if it gets done either right at the conclusion of this minicamp going into the summer or like right when the team gets ready to come back from training camp. I always use this logic for evaluating whether a deal is likely to get done for a head coach or not. If this was the beginning of the NFL head coaching hiring cycle and there were 8 openings and Kevin Stefanski were available, would he get a job? And the answer is he might get 4 out of those 8 jobs.
That's right.
So you don't like guys like that out the building. I can't imagine the Browns would do that with Kevin anytime soon.
Hearing that from you, I feel much, much better. Also, I've given you now an idea for Halloween this year. You're absolutely going as Kevin Stefanski. I need you to take pictures and send them to us. Yeah. With that youthful face, it might take you a month, so don't shave from now until October, and you'll be full Kevin Stefanski. Feel
That
like
sounds great. I'll work on the pepper. There's salt and pepper as well.
Very good. It's truly great to see you. I always enjoyed our time together at ESPN. You are one of the truly great guys at that network there. Lucky to have you, and we're lucky to be able to watch you and listen to you and read you because you're always on point and you're very, very knowledgeable and plugged in. Thank you, and it's great to catch up with you, Field.
Thank you so much, Jay, and to everybody on the show. I really appreciate it. Let's do it again sometime soon. I'd always love to talk more Browns or Donovan Mitchell. You name it.
Let's do it.
And your new nickname is Field Atreides. He is now the Duke of Arrakis.
Wow.
Hey, Phil, one last thing. One last thing, Phil. Miles better not come out asking for a new contract, man. He better not come out asking for a new deal, man.
But if he gets one, I get a cut of it at least.
Facts.
But you are right, by the way. You are right. He is the most underpaid player in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Field Yates, you're
Truly.
awesome. Great to see you. And we will be taking you up on that. We'll call you
Yes.
again when the season comes around.
Can't wait, guys. Talk to you then.
Good seeing you.
Awesome. That was Field Yates. When he comes back, we'll get his take on Jose Ramirez and the Cleveland Monsters' third line. That's who is coming.